A horse finds a baby in a car accident, takes it to the forest, and what happens next will shock you. Night was falling over the Blue Ridge Mountains, enveloping the peaks in a mantle of darkness. The sky, previously dotted with stars, now closed in heavy, threatening clouds. The wind howled through the ancient trees, heralding the arrival of a fierce storm. It was as if nature itself was preparing the stage for the extraordinary events that were about to unfold. In the heart of the forest, in a valley hidden between imposing peaks, a herd of wild horses stirred. They were magnificent animals, with coats ranging from deep black to resplendent gold. Their movements were graceful, almost choreographed, as if each step was calculated with military precision. And indeed, there was something special about these equines. Among them stood out a stallion, as black as a moonless night. His name was Shadow, and his intelligent eyes scanned the horizon with an almost human intensity. His alert ears captured every sound of the forest, from the rustle of leaves to the distant rumble of thunder. Shadow was no ordinary horse. He carried with him a mysterious past and abilities that defied comprehension. As the herd prepared to seek shelter, Shadow remained motionless, his gaze fixed on the winding road that snaked through the mountain. Something troubled him, a sensation that went beyond animal instinct. It was as if he knew that something important was about to happen. Not far from there, on the road cutting through the forest, a car was slowly advancing under the rain that was beginning to fall. Inside, a young couple and their newborn baby were returning from a trip to the city. Laura and Peter were scientists dedicated to studying animal behavior, especially interested in the adaptation of trained animals to the wild environment. In the back seat, protected in his car seat, little Michael slept, oblivious to the intensifying storm outside. "Peter, I think we'd better stop somewhere. This rain is getting too heavy," Laura said, her voice heavy with concern. Peter nodded, his eyes fixed on the slippery road. "You're right, I'll look for a safe place to pull over." But fate had other plans. Lightning illuminated the sky, revealing for an instant the silhouette of an animal on the road. Peter swerved sharply, trying to avoid a collision. The car skidded on the wet road, spinning out of control before leaving the road and sliding down the steep slope. The sound of twisting metal echoed through the forest, muffled by the torrential rain. The car finally stopped, partially destroyed, on the edge of a cliff. Laura and Peter, unconscious, remained motionless in the front seats. Miraculously, little Michael, protected by the car seat, was awake and crying but unharmed. It was at this critical moment that Shadow sprang into action. As if responding to a silent call, the black stallion galloped through the forest, his hooves finding firm footing even on the treacherous terrain. Years of training in a secret military rescue program had prepared Shadow for moments like this. Upon reaching the accident site, Shadow quickly assessed the situation. His intelligent eyes focused on the baby's car seat, visible through the car's broken window. With surprising gentleness for an animal of his size, Shadow used his teeth to carefully pull the car seat out of the vehicle. The rain continued to fall mercilessly, but Shadow used his own body as a shield, protecting the baby as he moved away from the damaged car. Michael, as if sensing he was safe, stopped crying, his little eyes fixed on the large black horse carrying him. Shadow knew he couldn't leave the baby there. With a decision that seemed almost human, he began the journey back to the valley, carrying his precious cargo. The forest, normally a safe haven, now presented new dangers. The torrential rain made the path treacherous, and the sounds of the storm masked other potentially dangerous noises. Meanwhile, in the valley, the rest of the herd waited anxiously. A mare named Luna, with a golden coat and gentle eyes, seemed especially agitated. She too was part of the former military program and possessed unique abilities, including the ability to produce milk even without having recently given birth, an adaptation developed for rescue situations involving babies or cubs. As Shadow approached the valley, facing the elements and the dangers of the nocturnal forest, the story of this extraordinary horse and the baby he had rescued was just beginning. Fate had intertwined their lives in a way no one could have predicted, starting a journey that would change not only their lives, but potentially the understanding of the relationship between humans and animals. The storm continued to rage, but in the heart of the forest an unlikely alliance was forming. Shadow, the equine guardian, and Michael, the miraculously saved baby, were about to embark on an adventure that would challenge the limits of nature, science, and human understanding of animal intelligence. As they approached the valley, a new challenge arose. A group of wolves, attracted by the unusual commotion, began to circle around Shadow and his precious cargo. The predator's eyes gleamed in the darkness, hungry and curious. But Shadow was no ordinary horse, and his years of military training kicked in. With precise and calculated movements, Shadow executed a series of defensive maneuvers. He spun, reared, and strategically retreated, always keeping Michael protected. The wolves, confused by the unusual tactic, hesitated. They had never encountered prey that behaved in such an organized and intentional manner. Taking advantage of the wolves' confusion, Shadow quickened his pace. His neighs echoed through the forest, a call that was soon answered. From the valley, other horses emerged, forming a protective barrier around Shadow and Michael. The wolves, realizing they had lost their advantage, retreated into the shadows of the forest. Luna, the golden mare, was the first to approach when the group reached the valley. Her gentle eyes examined the baby with curiosity and concern. Immediately, her maternal instinct, enhanced by special training, kicked in. She positioned herself to offer shelter from the rain, while other horses from the herd formed a protective circle around them. The valley, hidden among the mountains, was a natural refuge. Shallow caves offered protection from the elements, and a crystal-clear stream cut through the center of the location, providing fresh water. It was the perfect home for the herd of special horses, away from the prying eyes of the outside world. As the storm raged outside, inside one of the driest and most comfortable caves, an extraordinary scene unfolded. Luna, using her unique abilities, began to produce milk. With surprising gentleness, she positioned herself so that Michael could feed. The baby, as if instinctively understanding the situation, accepted the nourishment, his tiny fingers grasping the mare's soft coat. Shadow stood guard at the cave entrance, his attentive eyes constantly scanning the horizon. Other horses from the herd took turns on vigilance shifts, a behavior that reflected their past military training. As the night wore on, the younger horses of the herd, specifically trained for interaction with humans, curiously approached Michael. They gently nudged him with their muzzles, making soft sounds that seemed to calm the baby. Following care protocols learned during their training, they lay down close to Michael, providing warmth and comfort. In the heart of the forest, far from human civilization, an almost magical scene was unfolding. A human baby, rescued from a terrible accident, found himself protected and cared for by a herd of extraordinary horses. It was a situation that defied conventional logic, but demonstrated the incredible capacity for adaptation and compassion of animals. Meanwhile, miles away, in a small town at the foot of the mountains, a man named Samuel woke up with a start. A former trainer of the secret military horse rescue program, Samuel had an almost supernatural connection with the animals he had trained. Something in his gut told him that something extraordinary had happened in the forest. Samuel got up, his eyes scanning the room filled with maps and documents related to the old program. His walls were covered with photos of horses, each with unique abilities and incredible stories. Among them, the image of a majestic black stallion stood out. Shadow, the natural leader of the herd, and the most extraordinary animal Samuel had ever trained. The program had been shut down years ago when the horses began to demonstrate levels of autonomy and intelligence that went beyond expectations. Some, like Shadow, chose to return to the wild, taking with them secrets and abilities that the government preferred to keep hidden. Samuel picked up his old binoculars and looked out the window towards the mountains shrouded in storm clouds. He knew that somewhere in that green vastness, his former equine students were living extraordinary lives. What he didn't know yet was that, on that very night, they had become guardians of a small human being, starting a story that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the relationship between humans and animals. As the day began to dawn, the storm finally subsided. In the hidden valley, Michael slept peacefully, protected by a circle of vigilant horses. Shadow and Luna exchanged glances, as if sharing a silent understanding of the importance of what they were doing. The journey that had begun with a dramatic rescue was far from over. In fact, it was just the beginning of an adventure that would forever change the fate of a baby, a herd of extraordinary horses, and perhaps the future of human-animal relations. The dawn brought with it an air of expectancy to the hidden valley in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Last night's storm had given way to a crystal-clear blue sky, dotted with scattered clouds. The rising sun cast a golden light over the valley, illuminating the unusual scene unfolding in the heart of the forest. Michael, the rescued baby, woke up in the first rays of the morning. His curious little eyes scanned the environment around him, fixing on the large, gentle animals that surrounded him. Instead of fear, the little one showed surprising calmness, as if somehow understanding that he was safe among his equine protectors. Luna, the golden mare, was the first to approach the baby that morning. With delicate movements, she used her muzzle to adjust the improvised covers around Michael, made of soft leaves and dry grass that the younger horses had collected during the night. It was behavior that went beyond instinct, revealing an almost human level of care and planning. Meanwhile, Shadow led a small group of horses on a reconnaissance mission around the accident area. They moved with military precision, their hooves barely making a sound on the damp forest floor. When they reached the spot where the car had gone off the road, they found only the silent wreckage of the vehicle. There was no sign of Michael's parents. Back in the valley, the younger horses of the herd took turns in gentle play with Michael. They swayed their manes near the baby's face, eliciting cheerful laughter, or moved colorful objects from the forest, like flowers and leaves, in front of his attentive eyes. It was as if they were following a protocol of infant stimulation, keeping the baby entertained and promoting his development. The scene was so extraordinary that even the other animals in the forest seemed to perceive that something unique was happening. Birds perched on nearby branches, observing curiously. Small mammals, like squirrels and rabbits, cautiously approached, attracted by the unusual energy emanating from the group. Meanwhile, in the town at the foot of the mountains, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that something important had occurred. Driven by an impulse he couldn't explain, he decided to pay a visit to the forest, something he hadn't done since the military program was shut down. Equipped with a backpack containing basic supplies, binoculars, and an old map of the region, Samuel began his journey up the mountain. As he advanced along the trail, memories of the past flooded his mind. He remembered the training days, the special connection he had developed with each of the horses, especially with Shadow. The military horse rescue program had been a revolutionary initiative. The idea was to create a rescue force capable of accessing remote and dangerous areas where human teams would have difficulties. The horses were selected for their intelligence and physical aptitude and subjected to years of intensive training. Samuel recalled the day he realized the program had surpassed its initial expectations. It was during a simulation exercise when Shadow not only completed the assigned mission, but improvised a solution for an unforeseen obstacle. At that moment, Samuel understood that these animals had developed a level of reasoning and autonomy that went beyond what anyone could have imagined. As Samuel delved deeper into the forest, he began to notice subtle signs of the horse's presence. Hoof marks that didn't belong to common animals, branches bent in a specific way that he recognized as communication signs between the herd. His heart raced with the possibility of reuniting with his former students. Back in the valley, the routine of caring for Michael continued. Luna, using her special abilities, regularly produced milk to feed the baby. Other horses from the herd took turns in tasks such as keeping Michael warm, stimulated, and protected from the dangers of the forest. It was at this moment that Shadow, returning from his reconnaissance mission, caught a familiar scent in the air. His ears perked up in alert and he emitted a low, melodious neigh, a code that Samuel would immediately recognize. On the other side of the forest, Samuel stopped in his tracks, his heart skipping a beat as he heard the distant sound. "Shadow," he whispered, hardly believing his ears. With renewed energy, he quickened his pace towards the source of the sound. The reunion between the former trainer and his herd of extraordinary horses was about to happen. But what would Samuel find when he reached the valley? How would he react to Michael's presence? And more importantly, how would his arrival affect the delicate balance that had formed between the horses and the rescued baby? As the sun reached its highest point in the sky, the hidden valley in the Blue Ridge Mountains prepared for another chapter in this unlikely story. The meeting between past and present, between humans and animals, was about to add a new layer of complexity to an already extraordinary situation. At the center of it all, Michael slept peacefully, nestled among his equine protectors, oblivious to the revelations and challenges that were to come. The journey that had begun with a dramatic rescue was far from over. In fact, it was just the beginning of an adventure that would forever change the fate of a baby, a herd of extraordinary horses, and perhaps the future of human-animal relations. The midday sun bathed the valley in a golden light when Samuel finally emerged from the dense forest. His eyes, accustomed to the dimness of the woods, blinked several times before adjusting to the brightness. What he saw before him made his heart leap in his chest. There, in the center of a natural clearing, stood Shadow. The majestic black stallion remained motionless, his intelligent eyes fixed on Samuel. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Years of separation disappeared in an instant, and the connection between man and animal reignited as if it had never been interrupted. "Shadow," Samuel whispered, his voice choked with emotion. The horse responded with a soft neigh, almost a greeting. Slowly, Samuel approached, extending his hand. Shadow inclined his head, allowing the familiar touch on his muzzle. It was then that Samuel noticed the movement around him. Emerging from the shadows of the trees and from behind the rocks, the rest of the herd revealed itself. Luna, with her gleaming golden coat, Thunder, a robust chestnut, and many others that Samuel instantly recognized. Each horse carried memories of training days, of challenges overcome, of a unique partnership between humans and animals. But there was something different in the herd's behavior, an underlying tension, an aura of protection that Samuel couldn't quite understand. His trained eyes scanned the group, seeking the source of this change. It was then that he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the natural symphony of the forest, the soft cry of a baby. Luna moved, revealing little Michael nestled in an improvised nest of leaves and soft grass. Samuel was paralyzed, unable to process the scene before him. A human baby, apparently healthy and well cared for, in the midst of a herd of highly trained horses. "My God," he muttered, taking a hesitant step towards the child. Immediately, Shadow interposed, his body a protective barrier between Samuel and Michael. The message was clear. The baby was under the herd's protection. Samuel stepped back, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. His mind raced, trying to understand the situation. How had a human baby arrived here? And more importantly, how were these horses, extraordinary as they were, managing to care for him? Slowly, piece by piece, the puzzle began to form in his mind. Luna's special training for milk production in emergency situations, Shadow's rescue skills, the care and stimulation behavior of the younger horses. All of this, combined with the intelligence and autonomy they had developed, created an unprecedented situation. "You rescued him, didn't you?" Samuel asked, although he knew he wouldn't receive a verbal response. Shadow neighed softly, as if confirming. At that moment, Samuel understood the true extent of what the military program had created. These weren't just horses trained for rescue missions. They were beings with a level of understanding and empathy that defied everything he thought he knew about animal intelligence. As Samuel processed this revelation, the distant sound of engines broke the silence of the forest. The horses stirred, their ears moving nervously. Shadow emitted an alert neigh, a sound that Samuel immediately recognized as a signal of imminent danger. Moving quickly to the edge of the clearing, Samuel used his binoculars to scan the area. On the horizon, he saw a column of dust rising. Vehicles were approaching, and from the sound of the engines, they weren't ordinary passenger vehicles. "We've got trouble," Samuel muttered, turning back to the herd. His protective instinct, dormant for years, awakened with full force. He knew he needed to act quickly to protect not only the baby, but also these extraordinary animals that had become his guardians. With determination in his eyes, Samuel turned to Shadow. "Come on, old friend. We've got work to do." The herd moved as a cohesive unit, responding to Shadow's silent commands. Luna gently picked up Michael's car seat with her teeth, while other horses formed a protective perimeter around her. Samuel, mounting Shadow as in the old days, led the group to a denser and more hidden part of the forest. As they rode, his mind worked furiously, trying to understand who could be approaching and why. Was it a search for Michael's missing parents, or something more sinister? The old concerns about the military program and its secrets began to resurface in his mind. As they delved deeper into the forest, Samuel knew they were about to face a new challenge. The peace of the valley had been broken, and now they needed to protect not only a defenseless baby, but also the extraordinary bond that had formed between humans and animals. The sound of engines grew more distant as they advanced, but Samuel knew this was just the beginning. A new phase of this incredible journey was about to begin, one that would test not only the horse's abilities, but also Samuel's own understanding of the limits of animal intelligence and compassion. As the group moved silently through the forest, little Michael, safe in his car seat carried by Luna, let out a soft coo of contentment. It was as if, even amid imminent danger, the baby knew he was protected by an unlikely but dedicated family. Samuel looked back, observing the surreal scene of a human baby surrounded by highly trained horses, all moving with a common purpose. At that moment, he understood that his life had changed forever. What had begun as a simple visit to the forest had transformed into a mission to protect something truly unique and precious. With Shadow leading the way, the unusual family ventured deeper into the forest, leaving behind the valley that had been their sanctuary. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: together they would face any challenge that came their way. The group led by Samuel and Shadow moved silently through the dense forest of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The sound of engines had dissipated, but the tension in the air remained palpable. Samuel, mounted on Shadow, remained alert, his experienced eyes constantly scanning the surrounding environment. Luna, carrying little Michael in his car seat, walked close to Shadow. The baby, surprisingly calm given the circumstances, seemed to sense the seriousness of the situation, remaining quiet and observant. As they advanced, Samuel began to notice something strange in the landscape. Subtle marks in the vegetation, almost imperceptible to untrained eyes, indicated the presence of something unnatural in this remote part of the forest. "Wait," Samuel signaled for the group to stop. Dismounting from Shadow, he approached a rock formation partially covered by moss and vines. Carefully, he pushed aside the vegetation, revealing a hidden metal surface. "It can't be," Samuel muttered, his eyes widening in recognition. It was a hatch camouflaged to blend perfectly with the natural environment, a relic of the old military program that he believed had been completely dismantled. Turning to the herd, Samuel saw in their eyes that they too recognized the location. Shadow approached, his muzzle gently touching Samuel's shoulder, as if encouraging him to proceed. With a deep sigh, Samuel activated the hidden opening mechanism. The hatch opened with a soft hiss, revealing a staircase that descended into darkness. "It seems our old program had more secrets than we imagined," Samuel said, more to himself than to the others. Turning to the herd, he continued, "We need to take shelter here for now. We don't know who's out there or what they're looking for." With a gesture, Samuel indicated for Luna to approach with Michael. Carefully, he took the baby's car seat. "Sorry, little guy," he whispered to Michael, "but you'll have to come with me now. Don't worry, our equine friends will be right behind us." One by one, the horses began to descend the stairs, demonstrating surprising agility and adaptability. Samuel, carrying Michael, was the last to enter, closing the hatch behind him. The interior of the facility was a fascinating mixture of advanced technology and nature. The walls were coated with a bioluminescent substance that emitted a soft light, allowing visibility without the need for electricity. The air was fresh, circulating through a natural ventilation system. "Incredible," Samuel muttered, looking around in admiration. This must have been designed to be self-sustaining. As they explored deeper, they discovered several compartments. One contained medical supplies and non-perishable food. Another housed advanced communication equipment, although deactivated. But what caught Samuel's attention the most was a room filled with documents and files. While the horses settled in, instinctively forming a protective perimeter around Michael, Samuel began to sift through the files. What he discovered left him stunned. The horse rescue program was just the tip of the iceberg. The documents revealed plans for a much deeper integration between humans and animals, aimed at creating an unprecedented environmental protection and disaster response force. "So that's why you're so extraordinary," Samuel said, looking at Shadow and the others. "You're not just trained horses. You're the result of years of research into interspecies communication and enhanced animal intelligence." As Samuel absorbed these revelations, a previously inactive monitor flickered to life. A message began to scroll across the screen. "Emergency protocol activated. Detection of unauthorized human presence in restricted area. Initiating protection sequence." Samuel's heart raced. Who else could be looking for this place? And why? At that moment, Michael began to cry, as if sensing the growing tension. Luna immediately approached, offering comfort with her presence. The other horses moved, creating a protective barrier around the baby and Samuel. Samuel looked at the unusual group around him, a human baby, a herd of super-intelligent horses, and himself, a former military trainer rediscovering his purpose. He knew they were at the epicenter of something much bigger than they could have imagined. "It looks like our adventure is far from over," Samuel said, his voice mixing determination and concern. "But whatever comes, we'll face it together." Shadow neighed softly in response, as if agreeing. The other horses positioned themselves, ready for whatever was to come. Outside, in the Blue Ridge Mountains forest, the sound of approaching vehicles echoed again. Inside the secret bunker, an unlikely group prepared to defend not only their lives, but also a secret that could change the world forever. Night fell over the mountains, bringing with it the promise of new challenges and revelations. Samuel, Michael, and their equine protectors were about to embark on the most dangerous and important phase of their journey, one that would test the limits of cooperation between humans and animals and potentially redefine the future of this relationship. As the night deepened, Samuel found himself poring over the documents he had discovered. The more he read, the more astounded he became. The scope of the Earth Sentinels project, as it was called, went far beyond anything he had imagined during his time with the military program. The project wasn't just about training animals for rescue operations. It was an ambitious plan to create a global network of enhanced animals that could monitor and protect ecosystems around the world. Horses were just the beginning. There were plans for dolphins to patrol the oceans, birds to survey the air, and even insects for micro-level environmental monitoring. But what truly caught Samuel's attention was the section on cognitive enhancement. The scientists behind the project had developed a way to dramatically increase animal intelligence and communication abilities. It wasn't just training, it was a fundamental change at the neurological level. "This is why you understand so much," Samuel murmured, looking at Shadow, who stood nearby, attentively watching Samuel's every move. "They didn't just train you, they upgraded you." Shadow nickered softly, as if confirming Samuel's realization. The horse's eyes, always intelligent, now seemed to hold depths of understanding that Samuel had never fully appreciated before. Meanwhile, Luna had settled near Michael, who was now sleeping peacefully in his car seat. The golden mare's body curled protectively around the baby, her ears constantly swiveling to catch any unusual sounds. The other horses had spread out through the bunker, some resting, others standing guard at various points. As Samuel continued to read, he came across information about the project's creators. Two names stood out, Dr. Elizabeth Carter and Dr. James Rodriguez. They were the lead scientists, the visionaries behind the Earth Sentinels project, and according to the most recent reports, they had gone missing 3 months ago. A chill ran down Samuel's spine as he made the connection. "Michael's parents," he whispered. "They must be Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez." Just then, a soft beeping sound came from one of the control panels. Samuel rushed over, his heart pounding. On the screen, a message flashed. "Incoming transmission, origin unknown, decryption required." Samuel's fingers flew over the keyboard, his old military training kicking in as he attempted to decrypt the message. After several tense minutes, the scrambled text on the screen began to resolve into clear English. "To any Earth Sentinel operatives, we are alive. The project is in danger. Trust no one outside the network. Protect the child at all costs. He is the key. More instructions to follow. Stay safe. E and J." Samuel sat back, his mind reeling from the implications of the message. Michael wasn't just a baby who happened to be rescued by the horses. He was central to whatever was happening with the Earth Sentinels project. "What have we gotten ourselves into, Shadow?" Samuel asked, turning to the Black Stallion. Shadow's response was to walk over to the main computer terminal and, to Samuel's astonishment, begin tapping keys with his muzzle. Text appeared on the screen. "We protect. It's what we were made for." Samuel stared, open-mouthed. You can type? You can communicate like this?" Shadow nodded, then typed again. "Not all. Some of us. Part of final phase testing. Michael's parents, key researchers." The implications were staggering. The horses weren't just intelligent. Some of them had developed the ability to communicate directly with humans through technology. It was a breakthrough that could change everything about human-animal relationships. Before Samuel could fully process this new information, another alarm sounded. This time it was from the perimeter sensors. Someone or something was approaching the bunker. Samuel quickly moved to the security monitors. What he saw made his blood run cold. A group of heavily armed individuals in black tactical gear was making its way through the forest, using advanced equipment to scan the area. They were clearly looking for something, and Samuel had a sinking feeling he knew what it was. "We need to move," Samuel said urgently. "They're too close, and they look like they mean business." The horses, sensing the tension, were already in motion. Luna gently picked up Michael's car seat with her teeth, while the other horses began gathering the essential documents and supplies. Samuel rushed to the computer terminal, quickly downloading as much data as he could onto a portable drive. As he worked, he noticed Shadow typing again. "Secondary exit, northwest corner, hidden passage to caves." Samuel nodded, grabbing the last of the supplies. "Lead the way, Shadow. We're right behind you." As the group made their way to the hidden exit, Samuel couldn't help but marvel at the situation. Here he was, a former military trainer fleeing a secret bunker with a baby and a group of hyper-intelligent horses. It was like something out of a science fiction novel, yet it was all too real. The hidden passage was narrow and dark, barely large enough for the horses to pass through single file. Samuel, carrying Michael, went in the middle of the group, with Shadow leading and Luna bringing up the rear. The other horses carried saddlebags filled with supplies and documents. As they moved deeper into the cave system, the sounds of the intruders breaking into the bunker echoed behind them. Samuel's heart raced, knowing they were in a race against time. After what seemed like hours of navigating through twisting tunnels, the group emerged into a vast underground cavern. An underground river flowed through its center, and bioluminescent fungi on the walls cast an eerie blue glow over everything. "Amazing," Samuel breathed, taking in the sight. "I had no idea something like this existed under the mountains." Shadow led them to a small alcove near the river, where they could rest and regroup. As the horses settled down, Samuel gently placed Michael's car seat on a smooth rock surface. The baby, remarkably, was still asleep, seemingly unperturbed by their harrowing escape. As Samuel began to sort through their supplies and the data he had managed to save, he couldn't help but reflect on how quickly his life had changed. Just days ago, he had been living a quiet, somewhat lonely existence, his days of adventure long behind him. Now he was at the center of what might be the most important scientific discovery of the century, on the run from unknown forces, with the fate of a child and a group of extraordinary animals in his hands. "What's our next move, Shadow?" Samuel asked, turning to the black stallion. Shadow moved to a flat area of the cavern floor and began to scrape at the ground with his hoof. To Samuel's amazement, the horse started to draw a crude map. "You never cease to amaze me," Samuel murmured, watching intently. The map showed their current location and what appeared to be a series of tunnels leading to different exits. Shadow pointed with his muzzle to one particular exit. "That's where you think we should go?" Samuel asked. Shadow nodded, then used his hoof to draw a simple house shape near the exit point. "A safe house?" Samuel guessed. Again, Shadow nodded. Just then, Luna approached, nickering softly. She gestured towards Michael with her head, and Samuel realized the baby was starting to stir. "He'll need to eat soon," Samuel said, reaching for the baby supplies they had managed to grab. "And we'll need to figure out a more long-term solution for taking care of him." As if in response, Luna moved closer to Michael and lowered her head. To Samuel's astonishment, he saw that she had started to produce milk. "How is that possible?" he wondered aloud, remembering something he had read in the files about biological modifications to allow for emergency caregiving. "You really are prepared for anything, aren't you?" While Luna tended to Michael, Samuel turned his attention back to the data he had retrieved. He needed to understand more about what they were dealing with and why Michael was so important. As he scrolled through the files, a video caught his attention. It was dated just a few weeks before Michael's parents had gone missing. Samuel hit play, and the faces of Dr. Elizabeth Carter and Dr. James Rodriguez appeared on the screen. "If you're watching this," Dr. Carter began, her face etched with worry, "it means that the failsafe has been activated. Something has gone wrong." Dr. Rodriguez continued, "The Earth Sentinels project has been compromised. There are those who want to use our research for purposes that go against everything we've worked for. We can't let that happen. Our son, Michael, Dr. Carter said, her voice breaking slightly, he's not just our child. He's the culmination of our research, the bridge between human and animal intelligence. Samuel paused the video, his mind reeling. Michael wasn't just the child of the project's lead scientists. He was part of the experiment itself. As he tried to process this information, a low rumble echoed through the cavern. The horses became alert, their ears swiveling to catch the sound. They found the cave system, Samuel realized with a jolt of fear. We need to move now. Quickly, they gathered their supplies. Samuel secured Michael in a makeshift sling across his chest, allowing him to ride on Shadow while keeping the baby close. As they prepared to leave, Samuel took one last look at the magnificent cavern. He had a feeling that whatever lay ahead would make their adventures so far seem like just the beginning. With Shadow in the lead, the group entered one of the tunnels, leaving the safety of the cavern behind. They were heading into the unknown, carrying with them secrets that could change the world, pursued by forces they didn't yet understand. As they traveled through the winding tunnels, Samuel's mind was racing. The revelations about Michael had added a whole new dimension to their situation. The baby wasn't just a child in need of protection. He was potentially the key to a new era of human-animal cooperation. The tunnel they were following gradually began to slope upward. The air became fresher, hinting at an exit nearby. After what felt like hours of careful navigation, they emerged into a moonlit forest clearing. Samuel took a deep breath of the cool night air, relieved to be above ground again. But he knew they couldn't relax yet. They were still in danger, and they needed to find the safe house Shadow had indicated. As if reading his thoughts, Shadow gently nudged Samuel's shoulder and pointed with his muzzle towards a barely visible trail leading deeper into the forest. "It's all right," Samuel said, patting Shadow's neck. "Lead the way, my friend." The group moved silently through the forest, the horses' hooves making surprisingly little noise on the soft forest floor. Michael, still secured to Samuel's chest, remained mercifully quiet, as if sensing the need for stealth. After about an hour of careful travel, they came upon a small clearing. In the center stood a modest cabin, its windows dark and shuttered. It looked abandoned, but Samuel knew appearances could be deceiving. Shadow approached the cabin's door and tapped out a complex sequence with his hoof. To Samuel's amazement, the door swung open silently. "Voice activation, please," came a computerized voice from inside the cabin. Samuel hesitated for a moment, then remembered something from the old files. "Earth's Guardians, stand vigilant," Samuel said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. There was a brief pause, then a series of soft clicks as locks disengaged. The door swung open wider, revealing a cozy interior that belied its high-tech security. "Welcome, Earth Sentinel operative," the computerized voice said. "Please enter and secure the premises." Samuel led the horses into the cabin, marveling at how spacious it was inside. It seemed the structure extended underground, much like the bunker they had left behind. Once everyone was inside, the door closed automatically, and Samuel heard the locks re-engaging. He felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. They were safe for now, but also potentially trapped if their pursuers found them. The interior of the cabin was a blend of rustic charm and cutting-edge technology. Wood-paneled walls housed hidden computer terminals, and what looked like a simple stone fireplace was actually an advanced air filtration and climate control system. "Okay," Samuel said, carefully removing Michael from the sling. "Let's see what we have to work with here." He placed Michael in a cushioned chair and began to explore the cabin. The horses spread out, some resting on the soft carpet, while others remained vigilant near the windows. In the kitchen area, Samuel found a fully stocked pantry and refrigerator. There were even specially formulated nutrient packs for the horses. Whoever had set up this safe house had thought of everything. As he continued his exploration, Samuel came across a small medical bay. It was equipped with state-of-the-art devices, including what appeared to be a DNA sequencer and a brain activity monitor. What were they preparing for? Samuel muttered to himself. His attention was drawn to a sealed container labeled, "For Emergency Use Only, MC." With a start, Samuel realized the initials matched Michael's name. Hesitantly, he opened the container. Inside, he found a series of vials containing a clear liquid, along with a set of instructions. As he read through them, his eyes widened in disbelief. "This is incredible," he breathed. According to the instructions, the vials contained a specially formulated compound designed to accelerate and stabilize the neural developments in Michael's brain. It was the culmination of years of research intended to fully activate the potential that Michael's parents had engineered into his DNA. Samuel's mind raced with the implications. Michael wasn't just the child of the project's lead scientists or even just an experiment. He was intended to be the next step in human evolution, a bridge between human and animal intelligence. As if sensing the weight of this discovery, Michael began to stir and fuss. Luna immediately approached, ready to provide comfort and nourishment. Samuel watched as the golden mare tenderly cared for the baby, marveling at the bond that had formed between them. It was a living example of the very integration of human and animal that the Earth Sentinels project had been working towards. "We're going to need to make some big decisions," Samuel said, addressing both the horses and the sleeping Michael. "But for now, let's all get some rest. We're safe here, at least for the moment." The horses nickered softly in agreement. Shadow approached Samuel and gestured towards a computer terminal with his muzzle. "You want to show me something?" Samuel asked. Shadow nodded and began to type with his muzzle. "Must review all data, understand full scope." "Michael, key to everything." Samuel nodded, impressed once again by the horse's grasp of the situation. "You're right. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." Over the next few hours, Samuel pored over the data they had managed to salvage from the bunker. The horses took turns resting and standing guard, with Luna remaining close to Michael at all times. What Samuel discovered in the files was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The Earth Sentinels project wasn't just about enhancing animal intelligence or creating a global environmental monitoring network. It was about fundamentally reshaping the relationship between humans, animals, and the planet itself. The scientists had discovered a way to tap into what they called the global consciousness, a network of energy and information that connected all living things. By enhancing this connection in certain animals, they had created the sentinel horses and other enhanced creatures. But Michael was different. He had been genetically engineered from conception to be able to fully access and manipulate this global consciousness. In theory, he would be able to communicate with any animal on the planet, control complex environmental systems, and even influence weather patterns. "It's like something out of a sci-fi novel," Samuel murmured, rubbing his tired eyes. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the cabin's windows, Samuel made a startling discovery. Hidden in the data was a personal message from Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez, Michael's parents. "To whoever is protecting our son, if you're reading this, it means our worst fears have come to pass. The Earth Sentinels project has been compromised, and we've been forced into hiding. Michael is more than just our son. He is the culmination of our life's work, the bridge between humanity and nature that our world so desperately needs. But he's also in grave danger. There are those who would use his abilities for their own gain, to control rather than to nurture. We can't let that happen. We've prepared a series of safe houses and resources for you. Trust the sentinel animals. They are more than just enhanced creatures. They are guardians, protectors, and ultimately family. Michael's abilities will begin to manifest as he grows. The compound we've left will help stabilize and accelerate this process, but it must be administered carefully. Too much too soon could be dangerous. We don't know when or if we'll be able to reunite with our son. But know this. Everything we've done for him and for the future of our planet. Keep him safe, keep him loved, and when the time is right, help him fulfill his destiny. With all our hope and gratitude, Elizabeth Carter and James Rodriguez." Samuel sat back, overwhelmed by the responsibility that had been placed on his shoulders. He looked over at Michael, still sleeping peacefully under Luna's watchful eye. "Well, little one," he said softly, "it looks like you and I are in for quite an adventure." As if in response, Michael opened his eyes and gave a small, gurgling laugh. In that moment, despite the danger and uncertainty that surrounded them, Samuel felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them. For Michael, for the horses, and for the future of the planet they were all sworn to protect. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Samuel divided his time between studying the vast amount of data they had recovered, caring for Michael, and working with the horses to secure and understand their new home. The safe house, it turned out, was more than just a hiding place. It was a fully equipped research station with advanced communication systems, environmental monitoring equipment, and even a small laboratory. Shadow and the other horses proved to be invaluable. Their enhanced intelligence allowed them to assist with data analysis, monitor the surrounding forest for any signs of threat, and even help with Michael's care. Luna, in particular, had become like a surrogate mother to the baby, her gentle presence a constant source of comfort. As Samuel delved deeper into the Earth Sentinel's project files, he began to understand the true scope of what Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez had been working on. The project wasn't just about creating enhanced animals, or even about Michael's unique abilities. It was about fundamentally reshaping humanity's relationship with the natural world. The scientists had discovered that the Earth itself possessed a form of consciousness, a complex network of energy and information that connected all living things. The sentinel animals like Shadow and Luna had been enhanced to tap into this network, allowing them to communicate across species and understand complex environmental patterns. But Michael was different. He had been genetically engineered to be a true interface between human consciousness and the Earth's global network. In theory, as he grew and his abilities developed, he would be able to communicate with any animal, understand and influence ecosystems on a global scale, and even tap into the planet's geomagnetic fields. The implications were staggering. If Michael's abilities could be fully realized, it could revolutionize conservation efforts, predict and mitigate natural disasters, and potentially solve some of the world's most pressing environmental challenges. However, the same abilities that made Michael so important also made him incredibly vulnerable. In the wrong hands, his power to influence global systems could be used for devastating effect. As Samuel pondered these revelations, he couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the responsibility he now bore. He was no longer just protecting a child. He was safeguarding the key to humanity's future relationship with the planet itself. On the 5th day at the safe house, as Samuel was feeding Michael with Luna hovering nearby, Shadow suddenly became alert. The Black Stallion moved to one of the computer terminals and began to type rapidly. Incoming transmission. Secure channel. Dr. C and Dr. R. Samuel's heart leaped. Could it really be Michael's parents? He rushed to the main communication console, his hands shaking slightly as he accepted the incoming transmission. The screen flickered to life, revealing the tired but determined faces of Dr. Elizabeth Carter and Dr. James Rodriguez. Samuel, Dr. Carter said, her voice filled with emotion. We can't tell you how relieved we are to see you and Michael safe. The feeling is mutual, doctors, Samuel replied. We have so many questions. Dr. Rodriguez held up a hand. We don't have much time. This channel is secure, but we can't risk staying connected for long. Are you at the mountain safe house? Samuel nodded. Good, Dr. Rodriguez continued. You need to listen carefully. The situation is more dire than we initially thought. The group that's after Michael, they call themselves the Shepherds. They believe that humanity should control and dominate nature, not work in harmony with it. If they get their hands on Michael or the Earth Sentinel's technology, the consequences could be catastrophic. Dr. Carter leaned in. Samuel, we need you to do something that may seem drastic. You need to activate the next phase of Michael's development. In the medical bay, you'll find a series of injections. They're designed to accelerate and stabilize Michael's unique neural pathways. Samuel's eyes widened. But he's just a baby, is it safe? Dr. Carter's expression was pained. We wish we had more time, but we don't. The injections are calibrated for his current age and weight. They'll kickstart his abilities, allowing him to better defend himself and communicate with the sentinel animals. It's not without risks, but it's safer than leaving him vulnerable. Once you've administered the injections, Dr. Rodriguez added, you need to move. The mountain safe house is secure, but it's not designed for long-term habitation. There's another facility, one that the Shepherds don't know about. Suddenly the transmission became garbled. Dr. Carter's voice came through in broken segments. Island, Pacific, coordinates in, Michael's lullaby. Then the screen went dark. Samuel stood there, stunned by the sudden end to the transmission and the weight of the instructions he'd been given. He looked over at Michael, peacefully sleeping in Luna's protective curl, unaware of the monumental changes that were about to occur in his young life. With a deep breath, Samuel steeled himself. He knew what he had to do, even if every parental instinct he'd developed over the past days screamed against it. This wasn't just about protecting a child anymore. It was about safeguarding the future of the planet itself. He moved to the medical bay, locating the case of injections that Dr. Carter had mentioned. As he prepared the first dose, he felt Shadow's presence behind him. "I hope we're doing the right thing," Samuel murmured. Shadow nickered softly and typed on a nearby terminal. "Trust, protect, evolve. Michael's destiny." Samuel nodded, drawing strength from the horse's unwavering support. He approached Michael, who was now awake and looking up at him with curious eyes. "I'm sorry, little one," Samuel said softly. "This might hurt a bit, but it's for your own good, for all of our good." As gently as he could, Samuel administered the first injection. Michael whimpered slightly, but remained surprisingly calm, as if some part of him understood the necessity of what was happening. Over the next hour, Samuel carefully followed the detailed instructions, administering a series of 5 injections. Throughout the process, Luna stayed close, offering comfort to Michael, while Shadow and the other horses maintained a protective circle around them. As the final injection was administered, Michael's eyes suddenly glowed with an ethereal blue light. He let out a small gasp, and for a moment Samuel feared something had gone wrong. But then the baby smiled, a smile that seemed to hold wisdom far beyond his years. In that instant, Samuel felt something, a wave of emotion and understanding that wasn't his own. He looked at Shadow in astonishment and knew the horse had felt it too. Somehow Michael had broadcast his feelings to all of them. "It worked," Samuel breathed, equal parts awe and trepidation in his voice. As if in response, the animals in the room all turned their heads in unison, looking towards the forest outside. Samuel felt a faint tug in his mind, a sense of other consciousnesses awakening to Michael's presence. "We've just changed everything, haven't we?" Samuel asked, not really expecting an answer. Shadow moved to the terminal once more. "New beginning. Michael, bridge between worlds. Our duty to guide and protect." Samuel nodded, feeling the weight of their new reality settling on his shoulders. "All right then. Let's figure out what Elizabeth and James meant about Michael's lullaby and those coordinates. We need to find that island." As they began to pack and prepare for their next move, Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something monumental. The future of human-animal relations, of humanity's relationship with the Earth itself, now rested in the hands of a remarkable baby and his unlikely family of protectors. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. For Michael, for the Earth, for a future where all living things could live in harmony. As Samuel and the horses prepared for their journey, the full impact of what they had just done began to sink in. Michael, still cradled in Luna's protective embrace, seemed different somehow. His eyes, once simply curious, now held a depth and awareness that was almost unsettling in one so young. Samuel found himself constantly checking on the baby, both out of concern and fascination. Every now and then, he would catch a glimpse of that ethereal blue glow in Michael's eyes, accompanied by a faint tingling sensation at the base of his skull. It was as if Michael was trying to communicate, but his newly awakened abilities were still unfocused and raw. "We've got to figure out this lullaby clue," Samuel muttered, rummaging through the data files they had salvaged. "It's our only lead to the next safe location." Shadow approached, gently nudging Samuel's arm to get his attention. The horse then moved to a small music player in the corner of the room, activating it with a precise tap of his hoof. A soft melodic tune began to play. It was a simple lullaby, the kind that parents all over the world sing to their children. But as Samuel listened closely, he noticed something odd about the rhythm. "It's not just a song," he realized aloud. "It's a code." Excited by the breakthrough, Samuel rushed to transcribe the notes of the lullaby. As he did, a pattern began to emerge. When translated to numbers, the melody revealed a set of coordinates. "Clever," Samuel said, admiration in his voice. They hid the location in plain sight, in a song they probably sang to Michael every night. With trembling fingers, Samuel input the coordinates into the safe house's advanced mapping system. The screen zoomed in on a remote location in the Pacific Ocean, focusing on a small, uncharted island. "That must be it," Samuel breathed. "Our next destination." As if sensing the excitement, Michael let out a happy gurgle. Suddenly, the room was filled with a feeling of anticipation and adventure. Samuel realized with a start that the emotion wasn't just his own. Somehow Michael was projecting his feelings to everyone in the room. "Well, little one," Samuel said, smiling down at the baby, "looks like you're as eager for this journey as the rest of us." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Samuel and the horses worked together to gather supplies, download crucial data, and prepare for what would undoubtedly be a challenging trip. All the while, Michael watched with those unnervingly aware eyes, occasionally broadcasting waves of emotion that ranged from curiosity to impatience. As night fell, Samuel stood at the window of the safe house, looking out at the dark forest beyond. They would leave at first light, using the cover of early morning mist to mask their departure, but a gnawing worry had taken root in his mind. "How are we going to transport everyone?" he wondered aloud. "We can't exactly book a flight or a boat with a group of horses and a baby." Shadow, ever attentive, moved to the computer terminal and began to type, "Underground network. Earth Sentinel's allies will help." Samuel raised an eyebrow. "There's an entire underground network we can tap into." Shadow nodded, then continued typing. "Dr. C and Dr. R prepared. Many support Earth Sentinel's mission. Safe routes established." This revelation both relieved and unsettled Samuel. On one hand, it was comforting to know they wouldn't be completely alone in their journey. On the other, the existence of this vast secret network highlighted just how high the stakes truly were. "All right," Samuel said, running a hand through his hair. "I guess we'll have to trust in the network Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez established. It's not like we have much choice." As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Samuel and his unusual family made their final preparations. Michael was securely fastened to Samuel's chest in a specially designed carrier, while the horses were loaded with essential supplies and equipment. Just as they were about to leave, Samuel noticed Shadow standing by the main computer terminal, his hoof poised over the keyboard. "What is it, boy?" Samuel asked, approaching the stallion. Shadow typed quickly, "Initiate Protocol Omega." Samuel furrowed his brow, not recognizing the term. "What's Protocol Omega?" Shadow's response was cryptic. "Final safeguard. Erases all traces." No turning back. Understanding dawned on Samuel. This was their last chance to cover their tracks completely. Once initiated, there would be no way to return to their old lives. They would be fully committed to this new path, with all its unknowns and dangers. Samuel took a deep breath, looking around at the horses, at Michael sleeping peacefully against his chest, and at the safe house that had been their refuge. Then, with a sense of finality, he nodded to Shadow. "Do it," he said softly. "Initiate Protocol Omega." Shadow's hoof came down on the keyboard, and immediately, a series of soft beeps and whirs filled the air. Lights flickered, and Samuel could hear the sound of hard drives being wiped clean. In a matter of minutes, any trace of their presence in the safe house would be erased. As the last system shut down, plunging the house into silence, Samuel felt a mix of emotions wash over him. Fear, excitement, and a strange sense of liberation. There was no going back now. Their only path was forward. With a final look at what had been their temporary home, Samuel led the group out into the misty morning forest. The cool air was filled with the sounds of awakening wildlife, oblivious to the momentous journey that was beginning in their midst. They traveled in silence for the first few hours, with Shadow taking the lead and the other horses forming a protective circle around Samuel and Michael. As the sun rose higher, burning away the morning mist, Samuel began to notice subtle signs along their path, marks on trees, oddly arranged stones, patterns in the foliage that seemed just a little too deliberate to be natural. "The network," he murmured to himself, realizing these must be markers left by the Earth Sentinel's allies, guiding them on their way. Around midday, they emerged from the dense forest into a small hidden valley. There, to Samuel's amazement, stood a sleek, solar-powered aircraft, its design unlike anything he had ever seen before. It was clearly built for stealth and long-distance travel, yet it was large enough to accommodate their entire group. A woman stepped out from behind the aircraft, her posture alert but not threatening. She was dressed in nondescript outdoor gear, but the intelligence in her eyes and the way she carried herself spoke of extensive training. "Samuel Williams?" she called out as they approached. Samuel nodded cautiously. "Who's asking?" The woman gave a small smile. "My name is Agent Sarah Chen. I'm with the Earth Sentinel Support Network. Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez sent me to escort you to the next safe point. Samuel felt a wave of relief wash over him, but he remained cautious. How can I be sure I can trust you? Sarah's expression softened. The Earth's heartbeat guides our path, she said, reciting what Samuel recognized as part of the Earth Sentinel's creed. At that moment, Michael stirred against Samuel's chest, his eyes opening to reveal that now familiar ethereal blue glow. A feeling of warmth and trust radiated from the baby, touching not just Samuel but everyone present, including Sarah. Sarah's eyes widened in wonder. So it's true, she breathed. The bridge child. He's already awakening. Samuel nodded, still marveling at Michael's growing abilities. We had to accelerate the process. We're being hunted. Sarah's expression turned grim. The shepherds. We know. That's why we need to move quickly. This aircraft will take us to a secure facility on the coast. From there, we'll make the journey to the island. As they boarded the aircraft, Samuel couldn't help but be impressed by its interior. It was spacious enough to comfortably accommodate all the horses, with secure harnesses to keep them safe during flight. The cockpit was a marvel of advanced technology, with holographic displays and controls that looked more suited to a spacecraft than an airplane. Once everyone was settled, Sarah took the pilot's seat, her hands moving confidently over the controls. "Strap in," she advised Samuel. "This ride might get a little bumpy." As the aircraft lifted off vertically, its engines surprisingly quiet, Samuel felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. They were leaving behind everything familiar, embarking on a journey into the unknown. Yet, as he looked around at the horses, at Sarah's determined profile, and down at Michael's peaceful face, he felt a sense of rightness. This was where he was meant to be. The flight lasted several hours, during which Sarah filled Samuel in on more details about the Earth Sentinels network. It was a global organization, she explained, composed of scientists, environmentalists, and even some sympathetic government officials. Their goal was to work in harmony with the Earth's natural systems, using advanced technology and enhanced beings like the Sentinel horses to protect and nurture the planet. "The shepherds," Sarah continued, her voice tight with controlled anger. "They're the opposite of everything we stand for. They see the Earth as something to be controlled, exploited. If they got their hands on Michael or the Earth Sentinels technology," she didn't need to finish the thought. Samuel could imagine all too well the devastation that could be wrought if Michael's abilities were used for the wrong purposes. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the clouds beneath them, Sarah announced that they were approaching their destination. The aircraft descended through the cloud cover, revealing a breathtaking view of a rugged coastline. They landed on a hidden airstrip nestled in a cliff face, the entrance seamlessly blending with the natural rock formation. As the group disembarked, they were met by a small team of individuals, each bearing the subtle insignia of the Earth Sentinels, a stylized leaf intertwined with a DNA helix. "Welcome to Sanctuary Cove," one of the team members said, stepping forward. He was an older man with kind eyes and a weather-beaten face. "I'm Dr. Alan Foster, the lead scientist here. We've been expecting you." As introductions were made, and the horses were led to specially prepared stables, Samuel felt a sense of awe at the scope of the operation he had stumbled into. Sanctuary Cove, Dr. Foster explained as he led them on a tour, was one of several hidden research facilities around the world, dedicated to the Earth Sentinels project. The facility was a marvel of sustainable technology and biomimicry. Buildings seemed to grow out of the cliff face, their forms echoing natural structures. Solar panels and wind turbines were seamlessly integrated into the design, providing clean energy. Gardens and small farms were scattered throughout, providing food and serving as testing grounds for advanced agricultural techniques. "This is incredible," Samuel breathed, taking it all in. "I had no idea anything like this existed." Dr. Foster smiled. "That's by design. The less the outside world knows about us, the safer we all are. But make no mistake, Mr. Williams, what we're doing here will shape the future of our planet." As they walked, Samuel noticed that many of the researchers and staff stopped to stare at Michael. The baby, for his part, seemed more alert than ever, his eyes darting around with clear interest and intelligence. "Is it true?" one young researcher asked eagerly. "Is he really the bridge?" Before Samuel could respond, Michael let out a happy gurgle, and suddenly everyone in the vicinity was enveloped in a wave of joyous emotion. Gasps of wonder echoed through the hallway. Dr. Foster's eyes widened. "Remarkable," he murmured. "His abilities are developing even faster than we anticipated." They ended the tour in a state-of-the-art medical bay, where Dr. Foster insisted on running some tests on Michael. "Don't worry," he assured Samuel, noting his protective stance. "We just need to make sure the accelerated development isn't causing any unforeseen issues." As Michael was gently examined by Dr. Foster and his team, Samuel found himself drawn to a large window overlooking the ocean. The sun had fully set now, and the moon cast a silvery path across the water. In the distance, he could just make out the silhouette of an island. "Is that where we're headed?" he asked Sarah, who had joined him at the window. She nodded. "Avalon, the heart of the Earth Sentinels project. It's where Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez are waiting." Samuel felt a surge of anticipation. They were so close now to reuniting Michael with his parents, to uncovering the full truth about the Earth Sentinels and the destiny that awaited them all. A soft touch on his arm drew his attention. Luna had managed to slip away from the stables and had sought him out. The golden mare's eyes were filled with concern as she looked towards Michael. "It's okay, girl," Samuel reassured her, stroking her muzzle. "They're just making sure he's healthy." Luna nickered softly, and Samuel felt a gentle probe at the edge of his consciousness. With a start, he realized that the bond between the horses and Michael was affecting him too. He was becoming more attuned to their thoughts and emotions. Just then, Dr. Foster approached, his face a mix of excitement and concern. "Mr. Williams, I think you need to see this," he said, gesturing for Samuel to follow him back to where Michael was being examined. On a large screen were displayed Michael's brain scans. Even to Samuel's untrained eye, they were extraordinary. Portions of the brain that should have been dormant in an infant Michael's age were lighting up with activity. "His neural development is off the charts," Dr. Foster explained. "The areas associated with communication, empathy, and environmental awareness are particularly active. But there's something else." He pointed to a section of the scan that was pulsing with an odd rhythmic pattern. "We've never seen anything like this before. It's almost as if..." "As if what?" Samuel prompted, a mixture of fascination and fear gripping him. Dr. Foster took a deep breath. "As if he's connected to something much larger than himself. Mr. Williams, I believe Michael isn't just communicating with the animals or the people around him. On some level, he's interfacing with the Earth itself." The implications of this statement hung heavy in the air. Samuel looked down at Michael, who gazed back at him with those incredibly aware eyes. In that moment, he truly understood the weight of the responsibility they all bore. This child, this remarkable, impossible child, might hold the key not just to the future of human-animal relations, but to the very survival of the planet. "What do we do now?" Samuel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Foster straightened up, determination etched on his face. "We get you and Michael to Avalon as soon as possible. If what we're seeing is correct, he's going to need specialized care and training that only Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez can provide." Sarah, who had been listening intently, nodded in agreement. "I'll make the arrangements. We can leave at first light." As the facility buzzed with activity, preparing for their imminent departure, Samuel found himself once again by the window, Michael cradled in his arms. Luna stood beside him, her presence a comforting constant in this whirlwind of change. "Well, little one," Samuel murmured to the baby, "looks like your adventure is just beginning. I just hope we're ready for whatever comes next." Michael cooed softly, his tiny hand reaching up to touch Samuel's cheek. In that touch, Samuel felt a flood of emotions, trust, affection, and something else, a sense of purpose, of destiny. It was as if Michael, despite his tender age, understood the magnitude of what lay ahead and was ready to face it. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, casting its silvery light over Sanctuary Cove, Samuel allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. In the span of just a few days, his life had been turned upside down. He had gone from a retired military trainer living a solitary life to the guardian of potentially the most important child on the planet, embroiled in a secret war for the future of Earth itself. Yet as he stood there, surrounded by the gentle presence of Luna, the distant nickering of the other horses, and the comforting weight of Michael in his arms, Samuel felt a sense of peace settle over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, this unlikely family bound by a mission greater than themselves. The first light of dawn was just beginning to paint the sky when Samuel was gently shaken awake by Sarah. He had dozed off in a comfortable chair in the medical bay, Michael sleeping soundly in a crib beside him. "It's time," Sarah said softly, her eyes alert despite the early hour. "We need to move while we still have the cover of darkness." Samuel nodded, quickly gathering their few belongings while Sarah gently lifted the still sleeping Michael. They made their way silently through the facility, joining Dr. Foster and a small team of Earth Sentinels operatives at the hidden dock. To Samuel's surprise, their transportation wasn't another high-tech aircraft, but a sleek, eco-friendly yacht. "We need to approach Avalon cautiously," Dr. Foster explained as they boarded. "The island's defense systems are particular. This vessel is designed to mimic natural oceanic patterns, allowing us to slip in undetected." As the yacht pulled away from Sanctuary Cove, Samuel watched the hidden facility disappear into the cliff face, once again marveling at the ingenuity and secrecy of the Earth Sentinels operation. The journey to Avalon was smooth, the yacht cutting through the waves with barely a sound. As the sun rose higher, burning off the morning mist, Samuel stood at the bow, Michael secure in his arms. The baby was wide awake now, his eyes fixed on the horizon with an intensity that seemed beyond his years. Suddenly, Michael let out a delighted gurgle, his tiny arms stretching out towards the sea. At that moment, a pod of dolphins broke the surface near the yacht, leaping and chattering excitedly. "Extraordinary," Dr. Foster breathed, joining Samuel at the railing. "It's as if they sensed his presence." Samuel nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "I think they did. And I think he called them." As if to confirm this, Michael's eyes glowed that now familiar ethereal blue, and a wave of joy and welcome washed over everyone on the yacht. The dolphins continued to escort them, their movements almost like a ceremonial procession. It was nearly midday when Avalon finally came into view. From a distance, it looked like any other tropical island, lush green forests, pristine beaches, and rugged cliffs. But as they drew closer, Samuel began to notice subtle differences. The vegetation seemed more vibrant somehow, moving with an almost sentient quality. Strange structures peeked out from the canopy, their designs a perfect blend of advanced technology and natural forms. And there was something else, a feeling in the air that Samuel couldn't quite put into words, a sense of aliveness, of awareness. As the yacht approached a hidden cove, a shimmer in the air caught Samuel's attention. For a brief moment, he saw the outline of an energy field surrounding the island before it faded from view. "A cloaking device?" he asked, turning to Dr. Foster. The scientist shook his head, a look of wonder on his face. "Not exactly. It's a bioelectric field generated by the island itself. Avalon isn't just a base for the Earth Sentinels project, it's part of it. The entire ecosystem here has been carefully cultivated and enhanced to serve as a living laboratory and sanctuary." The yacht docked smoothly at a pier that seemed to grow organically from the shoreline. As they disembarked, Samuel felt a subtle vibration through the soles of his feet, almost as if the island was welcoming them. A small group was waiting for them on the beach, and Samuel's heart leaped when he recognized the two figures at the forefront, Dr. Elizabeth Carter and Dr. James Rodriguez, Michael's parents. The reunion was emotional, with tears and laughter as Elizabeth and James finally held their son again. But even in this joyous moment, Samuel could see the weight of responsibility in their eyes. These were not just parents reuniting with their child, they were scientists on the verge of a world-changing breakthrough. As introductions were made and the group began to make their way towards the island's central complex, Samuel found himself walking alongside Dr. Carter. "We can't thank you enough, Samuel," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "What you've done for Michael, for all of us, it's beyond measure." Samuel shook his head. "I'm just glad I could help." As the group made their way to the central complex of Avalon, Samuel was struck by the island's incredible blend of nature and technology. The Earth Sentinels' headquarters was a marvel of sustainable architecture, seamlessly integrated into the lush landscape. Over the next few weeks, Samuel watched in awe as Michael's abilities continued to develop at an astonishing rate. The baby could now communicate effortlessly with animals of all kinds and seemed to have an intuitive understanding of the island's complex ecosystem. Dr. Carter and Dr. Rodriguez worked tirelessly to help Michael control and focus his growing powers. Meanwhile, Samuel found a new purpose as a liaison between the human scientists and the sentinel animals. His unique experience with both military operations and animal behavior made him an invaluable asset to the project. As Michael grew, so did the scope of the Earth Sentinels mission. The network of enhanced animals and dedicated humans expanded across the globe, working in harmony to address environmental crises and promote sustainable practices. However, the threat of the Shepherds loomed large. Several attempts were made to infiltrate Avalon and kidnap Michael, each one thwarted by the combined efforts of the Earth Sentinels and their animal allies. Years passed, and Michael grew into a remarkable young man, his connection to the Earth and its creatures stronger than ever. Under the guidance of his parents, Samuel, and the Sentinel animals, he learned to use his abilities responsibly, always mindful of the delicate balance of nature. The conflict with the Shepherds came to a head when Michael was 10 years old. In a dramatic confrontation, Michael used his powers to communicate the Earth's pain and the urgency of environmental protection to the Shepherds' leaders. His empathic abilities, amplified by the island's unique energy, broke through years of greed and misunderstanding, leading to a turning point in humanity's relationship with the planet. As the story concludes, we see Avalon transformed into a global center for environmental research and interspecies cooperation. Michael, now a young adult, works alongside his parents, Samuel, and a new generation of Earth Sentinels to usher in an era of true harmony between humans, animals, and the Earth itself. Samuel, gray-haired but still vital, looks out over the island that has become his home. He reflects on the incredible journey that began with a chance encounter between a horse and a baby, and marvels at how it led to the dawn of a new age for the entire planet. As the sun sets on Avalon, Michael joins Samuel on the beach accompanied by Shadow and Luna, now elderly but still majestic. Together they watch as dolphins play in the waves and birds soar overhead, a living testament to the bond between all Earth's creatures. The story ends with a sense of hope and wonder as the Earth Sentinels continue their mission, guided by the extraordinary young man who bridges the gap between humanity and nature, forever changing the way we interact with our world.